Thank you, sir. My question for Minister for Manpower. In a Facebook post, Manpower Minister said that each time the MOM attempts to raise the standard of living in these dormitories, it would face objections from employers due to the added costs that come with the move. My first question is, under the Foreign Employee Dormitory Act, the licensed operator and dorm owners should be the party to be held accountable to raise the standard of living in the dormitories in the interest of public health and safety. So why the MOM involved the employer in the application of the provision of this Act in this instance? Any intention of the dorm operator and owner to pass down the cost should be a separate matter for the parties to resolve later, as the attempt by MOM to raise the living standard in the dorm are done in the interest of public health and safety. My second question is, under the Act, operators must develop a quarantine plan in the event of an infectious disease outbreak. Since the onset of the outbreak, taxpayers have been footing the bill for the quarantine exercise at these affected dormitories. As this is a pandemic, would these dorm operators and owners be held accountable for a share of the containment and quarantine costs? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, if I may respond to Mr. Peng's question this way. Every month, the employers pay a certain sum to the dormitory operators to accommodate their workers. Usually the rooms are rented by one single employer. So in any particular dormitory, you may have 400 rooms, 500 rooms, whatever the number may be, and one employer takes one room. Within that room, depending on the size of that room, size of that unit, certain number can be accommodated. So if, as a result of a change in standards, where we say that instead of accommodating X persons in one unit, eventually they can only accommodate X minus 2, X minus 3 persons per unit, then the cost per unit or cost per employee accommodated naturally goes up. And certainly to the employer, this is something that they have to bear. And whatever the business the employer is in, this goes into his cost considerations, and ultimately he will pass it on to whoever buys his products and services. So that's something that, we must always keep in mind. It's not so difficult for MOM by the stroke of a pen to change some numbers here and there, but we have to consider the overall implications and whether it is bearable for the employers. So that's on the first part. On the second question on whether the costs eventually have to be apportioned, I think, the scale of COVID-19's impact on businesses, and certainly even in the dormitories, is just unprecedented. At this point in time, if we were to start, calculating the cost, I think it's very hard to move things. It's impossible to get things done. Right now, the priority must be to keep the situation under control, bring it under control, and then at the appropriate time, we can look at what is the right considerations in terms of handling the issue of costs.